I genuinely forgot that Daniel was actually on the current rate up as a returning 5-star character. We're going to be talking about him in today's video, and we're going to talk about his E2, because I figured a lot of you that already have the character are very interested in his eidolons. And for those of you that don't have the character and are interested in E2, we are getting a fair amount of pulls, so why not try your luck, right? If you don't see yourself going for anything in this patch. But we're going to talk about Sparkle too, because her interaction with Daniel is also a very important to take into consideration. You only have so many pulls at the end of the day. Yo, what up, Toshi here. Now, for reference, in the video, this is going to be the Daniel build I'll be using. He only has 3100 attack, 104% crit rate, because obviously you want this character to crit at all times. When he doesn't crit, the damage kind of falls off a little bit. Crit damage is very, very low, but that doesn't matter in the grand scheme of things, because this character already buffs himself by an immeasurable amount. I am using his 5-star light cone, but I will try to swap light cones in between different battles, just to show you a more relatable experience. Oh, and let's just get this out the way, right? Because why not? His light cone is very valuable. If you don't have the light cone, consider getting it. The reason why is because crit rate is always valuable on any damage dealer, right? So it's easy to build the stats on this character. And then the attack increase, very nice. But the energy regeneration allows this character to get in much more smooth ult rotations, which makes him very nice and more, I would say, synergistic with characters like Ting Yun. For my traces, I have not gone past 8 because I never really needed to. With this build, he deletes everything. I am using the Wastelander set with the Rudolon. This is going to be best for Daniel because you're going to be fighting him against enemies that are weak to imaginary most of the time. Now the thing is about Daniel, he hasn't changed since his first release. His team comps haven't changed. To be honest, you just use whoever you have on your account. I find Bronya to be very nice with Daniel if you're able to take more turns before Daniel takes his turn, giving him more skill points to work with, and Ting Yun is always going to be best with this character, especially if you have Eidolon too, which allows you to take an additional turn whenever you do get your ult. So Ting Yun giving energy to him makes his E2 even more valuable. And then there's Yukong, and I'm going to keep it real with y'all. If you do not like playing the game in manual, then you probably won't like using Yukong alongside Daniel, but Yukong is the best character to use alongside Daniel, especially if you have Eidolon 6 for Yukong. She gives a ton of imaginary, further imaginary damage bonus with Planetary Rendezvous, some from her traces. She gives a ton of crit damage, crit rate. She'll be very nice in conjunction with Sparkle, which we'll talk about later in the video. And she's just very nice with her toughness breaking potential, allowing Daniel to get more uptime on his Wastelander set. That's also very important to take into consideration. And she gives attack on top of all of that too. But again, most players won't have Eidolon 6. Maybe you have Eidolon 1, 2, 3, Yukong. Don't use her alongside Daniel. It's going to be the most clunky playstyle you'll ever experience in this game. Luocha is going to be the best defensive option to use alongside Daniel because Daniel, unlike other characters, prefers skill points over any other buff that those characters provide. Now, Huohuo is a very nice character to use alongside Daniel, and she'll have more value once Sparkle does release, but Luocha is still going to reign supreme in most scenarios just because of his imaginary toughness breaking potential, allowing Daniel to get the Wastelander set with more uptime, and he does give a skill point every single turn, or most turns, right? Now again, once Sparkle does release, this team is going to change a little bit. You don't have to worry about the skill point Luocha gives, because Sparkle is going to give a ton of skill points already. However, the extra skill point that Luocha can give will allow you to meet that max amount of skill points much more quicker and will help with Eidolon 2 Daniel sometimes, right? It depends on if you are unlucky and there's like an enemy, like for instance, one of the enemies in the current edition of Honkai Star Rail that like CCs your ally and then like hits you against CCs and drops you down to the end of the turn order. So stuff like that can happen. I find Luocha to be very clutch with the scope he does given situations like that. But aside from that, Bronya is going to be replaced in this team comp. You can then use your Sparkle alongside Ting Yun giving a ton of energy, right? He's always going to be valuable with Daniel for Eidolon 2 builds. And then Sparkle giving skill points, giving crit damage, giving a additional turn or 50% combat readiness. But for Daniel, that's going to be pretty much an additional turn because of how slow this character will be built. And then she's just going to buff his attack, making him deal a ton of more damage. For those of you that do care about Honkai Star Rail's meta, right? Daniel will be a much more on par damage dealer with Jinglu once he does receive Sparkle. The reason being is because the only thing the character has struggled with is skill points in the long run. And well, since Sparkle gives a ton of skill points, and Sparkle is a character that isn't going to work with Jinglu as well as she does work with Daniel. Remember, Honkai Star is a game centered around utilizing the best supports and of course bringing the elements the enemy is weak to. If you can do either or, you'll have an advantage in the combat. Since Sparkle does synergize more with Daniel, he's going to have the upper hand when it comes to the combat when this character does release. And last but not least, let's talk about Huo, because she'll be a lot better with Daniel once Sparkle does release. The reason being is because skill points won't matter as much as they used to in the team comp. Because since you have a character giving you skill points, increasing the max amount of skill points, and giving skill points once the fight actually starts, a character like Huo will be able to use her elemental skill whenever she wants to, getting her ult faster. Once she gets her ult, she gives attack and energy to the team. Damage dealer is going to take advantage of that attack and energy. And for Daniel, that means getting his ultimate for much more clean rotations. So if you have Eidolon to Daniel and you have Huo, look forward to the release of Sparkle. You'll be very surprised to see how well that team performs. And I know I said this in a previous video, but I found Daniel to be one of the characters that I don't like using Ruame actually. This is kind of the only character in the game I feel this way about, and the reason being is because Daniel wants a character that is able to give him additional turns, right? Because if you're building him on a slow build, you can take advantage of characters like Bronya and Sparkle to give that action forward. Ting Yun giving energy, which allows that character to get his ultimate. But Ruame gives a lot of damage buffs, she gives speed, she gives break effect. The speed is nice if you decide to go on a speed build. For most players, you probably should just go with attack percent boots, so you don't have to worry about, getting all these additional stats on top of speed for the character to synergize with Ruame. That's just my honest opinion and what I found with using these two characters together. And the reason why is if you're using a hypercarry team, which is Daniel's best team and will remain his best team, you want to use the Queen of Hypercarry, and Bronya still remains with that title. And since she's just very good with characters that are built slower, she's just going to reign supreme in that team going forward. And Sparkle, being a 2.0 of Bronya, is just going to make the hypercarry team even better with Tingyun, who also feels the hypercarry team Daniel. And again, I know I talked about Luocha giving a skill point every single turn, and Bailu isn't far from that, especially if you use Bronya in the same team. And since Bronya has a cleanse, these two characters work really well together. So if you don't have Luocha, using Bailu will still allow Daniel to have a lot of value, because again, giving a skill point and then giving damage reduction, giving a revive, giving a ton of healing, Bailu might be better in some scenarios, to be honest. At the end of the day, let's just say you can only pull one thing in this whole patch, but you're looking to give Daniel the most value possible. Well, you can skip his Lycone, because there is another Lycone in the game that does provide a lot of value. Instead, you can just save for Sparkle, because she's going to be a bigger upgrade for Daniel than if you were to get his 5-star Lycone. So there you have it. I don't feel like we need to touch bases on anything else, because Daniel is a pretty self-explanatory character at this point. You use 3 skill points every single turn with the character. If you have Eidolon 2, then you don't have to worry about using 3 skill points if you have the stacks on his passive, right? With that being said, if you are looking for the most value for this character for this whole patch, and you're like, okay, well, I can only go for either Eidolon 2 or I can go for Sparkle. If I'm being completely honest with you all, I suggest going for Sparkle, because even though Daniel does give himself an additional turn, and he gives himself 3 skill points for free basically after using ultimate, since Sparkle gives skill points and increases the max amount of skill points you can have, and she gives a ton of crit damage and basically an additional turn for the damage dealer, is going to be more valuable than Eidolon 2 and his 5-star Lycone. That's going to be the video here. Thank you for watching, and have a nice rest of your day. Honestly, Daniel mains are going to win once Sparkle releases. This character is going to deal so much flipping damage. Peace.